And Saccaka said, I have confidence in Master Gautama thus. Master Gautama is developed in body and developed in mind. And the Buddha said, surely Agivesana, your words are offensive and discourteous, but still I will answer you. Since I shaved off my hair and beard, put on the yellow robe, and went forth from the home life into homelessness, it has not been possible for arisen pleasant feeling to invade my mind and remain, or for arisen painful feeling to invade my mind and remain. Let's stop here for a moment. So here you see, this Saccaka, he says, I have confidence that Master Gautama is developed in body and developed in mind. So the Buddha says, your words are offensive and discourteous. Why? Because he is asking the Buddha to say whether the Buddha is developed in body or developed in mind. And a lay person is not supposed to ask a monk about his attainments, and a monk is not supposed to speak of his attainments. So you should not ask a monk, have you attained jhana? Have you attained this and attained sotapanna? All this, it is offensive. So the Buddha says, ever since he went forth, arisen pleasant feelings do not invade his mind, or arisen painful feelings also do not invade his mind and remain. And Saccaka asked, has there never arisen in Master Gautama a feeling so pleasant that it could invade his mind and remain? Has there never arisen in Master Gautama a feeling so painful that it could invade his mind and remain? And the Buddha said, why not, Agivesana? Here, Agivesana, before my enlightenment, while I was still only an unenlightened bodhisattva, I thought, household life is crowded and dusty. Life gone forth is wide open. It is not easy, while living in a home, to lead the holy life, utterly perfect and pure as a polished shell. Suppose I shave off my hair and beard, put on the yellow robe, and go forth from the home life into homelessness. Later, while still young, a black-haired young man, endowed with the blessing of youth, in the prime of life, etc. Here the Buddha describes exactly what he said in Sutta 26. That's page 256. I won't read the whole thing, but I will say basically. So the Buddha said that in front of his parents he left the home life. Then he went to learn the meditation under Alara Kalama first. But because he did not attain enlightenment, he left him. But he attained the base of nothingness, the arupa. Then after that, he went to look for another meditation teacher. That was Uddaka Ramaputta, and he was able to attain the state of meditation that Uddaka Ramaputta attained, which is the highest arupa, the base of neither perception nor non-perception. But still, he did not become enlightened. So he left Uddaka Ramaputta. Then after that, he went to 6 years of ascetic practices, for which he suffered a lot and became so thin that he nearly died. Then after that, he decided to go on the middle path. And then he found a suitable place to practice by the banks of the river near Uruvela. Then the Buddha said, now these three similes occurred to me spontaneously, never heard before. Suppose there were a wet, sappy piece of wood lying in water, and a man came with an upper fire stick, thinking, I shall light a fire, I shall produce heat. What do you think, Agivesana? Could the man light a fire and produce heat by taking the upper fire stick and rubbing it against the wet, sappy piece of wood lying in the water? No, Master Gautama. Why not? Because it is a wet, sappy piece of wood and is lying in water. Eventually the man would reap only weariness and disappointment. So too, Agivesana, as to those recluses and Brahmins who still do not live bodily and mentally withdrawn from sensual pleasures, and whose sensual desire, affection, infatuation, thirst, and fever for sensual pleasures and has not been fully abandoned and suppressed internally, even if those good recluses and Brahmins feel painful, racking, piercing feelings due to exertion, they are incapable of knowledge and vision and supreme enlightenment. And even if those good recluses and Brahmins do not feel painful, racking, piercing feelings due to exertion, they are incapable of knowledge and vision and supreme enlightenment. This was the first simile that occurred to me spontaneously, never heard before. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, during the Buddha's days, when you want to make fire, you take an upper fire stick, is held vertically, and then you get another piece which is put horizontally, and then you rub until heat is generated. Then they put some fine wood shavings or anything to start the fire. But this bottom piece, the Buddha says, suppose you use this bottom piece, is wet externally and wet internally. The whole piece has been lying in water, so it's soaked with water, and outside also is wet. There's no hope of making a fire. In the same way, if a monk is bodily and mentally not withdrawn from sensual desire, then there's no hope of enlightenment. Bodily withdrawn from sensual pleasures means he does not use the body to engage in sensual pleasures, and mentally withdrawn from sensual pleasures also, he does not think about sensual pleasures. Again, Agivesana. A second simile occurred to me spontaneously, never heard before. Suppose there were a wet, sappy piece of wood lying on dry land, far from water, and a man came with an upper fire stick, thinking, I shall light a fire, I shall produce heat. What do you think, Agivesana? Could the man light a fire and produce heat by taking the upper fire stick and rubbing it against the wet, sappy piece of wood lying on dry land, far from water? No, Master Gotama. Why not? Because it is a wet, sappy piece of wood, even though it is lying on dry land, far from water. Eventually, the man will reap only weariness and disappointment. So too, Agivesana, as to those recluses and Brahmins who live bodily and mentally withdrawn from sensual pleasures, but whose sensual desire, affection, infatuation, thirst and fever for sensual pleasures has not been fully abandoned and suppressed internally. Even if those good recluses and Brahmins feel painful, racking, piercing feelings due to exertion, they are incapable of knowledge and vision and supreme enlightenment. And even if those good recluses and Brahmins do not feel painful, racking, piercing feelings due to exertion, they are incapable of knowledge and vision and supreme enlightenment. This was the second simile that occurred to me spontaneously, never heard before. Stop here for a moment. So here the second piece of wood that the Buddha says is unable to start a fire is the wood inside is dry because it's been lying on dry land, but outside is wet, just like a piece of wood, suppose on the ground, and the rain came last night, so it became wet. So if you want to make a fire, you won't be able to. So the Buddha says, in the same way, there are some monks, bodily and mentally they are withdrawn from sensual pleasures. That means they don't engage in sensual pleasures through the body, and they also don't think of sensual pleasures, using the mind to daydream and fantasize and all these things. But the sensual desire has not been fully abandoned and suppressed internally. That means deep inside, the desire has not been rooted out. And then again, Agivesana. The third simile occurred to me spontaneously, never heard before. Suppose there were a dry, sapless piece of wood lying on dry land, far from water, and a man came with an upper fire stick, thinking, I shall light a fire, I shall produce heat. What do you think, Agivesana? Could the man light a fire and produce heat by rubbing it against a dry, sapless piece of wood lying on dry land, far from water? Yes, Master Gautama. Why so? Because it is a dry, sapless piece of wood and it is lying on dry land, far from water. So too Agivesana, as to those recluses and Brahmins who live bodily and mentally withdrawn from sensual pleasures, and whose desire, affection, infatuation, thirst and fever for sensual pleasures has been fully abandoned and suppressed internally. Even if those good recluses and Brahmins feel painful, racking, piercing feelings due to exertion, they are capable of knowledge and vision and supreme enlightenment. And even if those good recluses and Brahmins do not feel painful, racking, piercing feelings due to exertion, they are capable of knowledge and vision and supreme enlightenment. This was the third simile that occurred to me spontaneously, never heard before. These are the three similes that occurred to me spontaneously, never heard before. Stop here for a moment. So these three similes, the first one is the wood is wet inside and outside. The second one, inside is dry but outside is wet. The third one is dry inside and dry outside. Only the third one, you can produce fire. So in the same way, the Buddha says, for a person to become enlightened, he has not only to be bodily and mentally withdrawn from sensual pleasures, but the sensual desire must be fully abandoned and suppressed internally. How can you abandon and suppress this sensual desire internally? This you have to look at the hindrances of the 5 hindrances. One of them is sensual desire. So if a person, for example, he understands the Dhamma, he understands that sensual desire is unwholesome, it can lead to repeated rebirth. So having understood the Dhamma, he does not engage in sensual pleasures and he does not want to think about sensual pleasures also. But because he has not eliminated this hindrance of sensual desire, which is the first hindrance of the 5 hindrances. If he has not eliminated this hindrance, then the tendency to want to enjoy sensual pleasures is still there. For example, if a person practices, like nowadays, they practice vipassana meditation, they don't want to practice samatha. So they know the Dhamma to the extent that they are bodily and mentally withdrawn from sensual pleasures. But because the sensual desire, the hindrance of sensual desire is not rooted out, in their dreams, they can still want to engage in sensual pleasures. But person who has attained the jhanas and eliminated this sensual desire, then he would not have the tendency to want to engage in sensual pleasures. So he has a chance of becoming enlightened. He is like this third type of wood. Again, we consider it in terms of the factors. A person who is a Sotapanna, the Buddha says, if he has not attained Sotapanna, does not need to attain the 4 jhanas. Sotapanna and Sakadagami, first and second fruition, Arya, they have eliminated three factors. The second fruition, Sakadagami, eliminated three factors and also weakened greed, hatred and delusion. So it is only the Anagamin who has destroyed the factor of ill will and sensual desire. So a person who to be able to become an Anagamin, you got to have 4 jhanas. So when a person has perfect samadhi, 4 jhanas, then this sensual desire is abandoned. So sometimes that's why in the suttas the Buddha says, if you were to slander even an external ascetic who has gotten rid of sensual desire, that means he has attained the jhanas, your karmic offense is very great. So you can see from here, if a person has not attained the jhanas, there is no hope. It's just like the sappy piece of wood. Then the Buddha continued, I thought, suppose with my teeth clenched and my tongue pressed against the roof of my mouth, I beat down, constrain and crush mind with mind. So with my teeth clenched and my tongue pressed against the roof of my mouth, I beat down, constrain and crush mind with mind. While I did so, sweat ran from my armpits. Just as a strong man might seize a weaker man by the head or shoulders and beat him down, constrain him and crush him, so too with my teeth clenched and my tongue pressed against the roof of my mouth, I beat down, constrain and crush mind with mind, and sweat ran from my armpits. But although tireless energy was aroused in me and unremitting mindfulness was established, my body was overwrought and uncalm because I was exhausted by the painful striving. But such painful feeling that arose in me did not invade my mind and remain. I stop here for a moment. So here you see, the Buddha was trying to use his mind to crush his mind. What does this mean? Because a person like the Buddha, he wants to become enlightened. And then when he analyzes, he knows it is this consciousness, this awareness, this mind that creates all the pain. As long as we are aware, as long as the mind is working, we are aware of pain, we are aware of suffering. But if this mind were to stop working, then we are not aware of any pain. There's no more suffering when the mind just stops. So because he didn't know the Dhamma, he used the strength of his mind to crush his mind. So here you can see here that the Buddha did not succeed. But I think there are some external ascetics who managed to succeed. So what happens when they crush the mind with mind and the consciousness ceases, then they become unconscious. That's why there's a class of beings called asanya satta. Asanya satta are supposed to be a class of beings in the fourth jhana heaven. And they are just a blob of body with no mind. They are not conscious at all. They have no perception, no consciousness, no feeling. So probably they are this type of ascetics who use mind to crush mind, and they succeeded. So when they were reborn, the mind stopped working. But they'll be there for a very long time. I don't know how many world cycles. And after that, when they've used up their time, suddenly the mind starts working and they fall out from there. But because they have not become an Arya, they still be in the round of rebirths, up and down. So here is interesting how the Buddha tried to one of the ways to get out of samsara, but did not succeed.